And there we go. Now we are live. So thank you to everyone who will be tuning in live or to those of you who are watching later for another interview here on the YouTube channel Darth Grader. So I'm Mark, one of the people running this channel. Previously, we had Cam on here. He's also helping some of the operations. You may recall a little bit about him as well. And then we have our guest of the hour today, Mr. Andy Talaga, who is very infamous in the Star Wars CCG community. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. We've seen you around, in the Star Wars CCG group, probably bidded against you in many auctions before, but you can tell us in your own words a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I have a pretty long history with Star Wars CCG at this point. I first started back when Premiere first went on the market. Started maybe like a month later in early February of '96, and was really a tournament player my whole time I was playing, all the way through till right at the very end. Beat Palace and kind of jumped over to play Lord of the Rings at that point and Magic for the next 20 years, basically. But played tournaments here in the Philadelphia area. That's where I'm from. And, we had a really great crew, really strong tournament scene here in the Coruscant area that still to this day, I mean, most of the PC advocates are from around here in Philly. So, we just played tournaments, like 4 or 5 tournaments every month for years. And then kind of when the license was lost in 2001, really just kind of drifted away from the game for almost 20 years. Maybe in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, I bought some random cards to build a cube because I got really big into Magic cubing at the time. And I was branching out into some other games that we could cube with my play group. So got some Star Wars stuff back then, but really it wasn't until COVID hit that I got back into the collecting, finally found time to sit down and do hobbies again. So, it was roughly maybe around like July or August of 2020, started buying again. And really everything's been within the last, maybe 16, 18 months, which, it's been kind of a crazy whirlwind of purchasing things. But so, that's really kind of my history with Star Wars CCG in a nutshell. I don't really have any time for tournaments anymore. I'm pretty much just strictly a collector at this point.
I see.
Very cool. That's fascinating. And a lot of, I'm excited for this interview. A lot of people, if anyone out there doesn't know, Andy's kind of like a mini legend in the community on both, he knows the player side and on the collector side. If there's anything high end up for sale, you'll scroll through the comments. You're likely to see Andy's name mentioned at some point. And that comes from someone else who is, always seeking after high-end things. Andy's just on another level of collecting. So I think you guys are in for a treat today and learning more about it. So that's very interesting to hear your background. You sound like much more of a player than I was. I did play some growing up. I never got to the serious competitive levels. But for you, how would you say, especially over this last year, your balance is between like investment, collection, personal collection, and as a player?
Yeah. So I haven't really played it all. I dabbled online playing on Gemp a little bit, but, just really wasn't for me. I know there's a lot of people that really love it. And, I think it's a really great thing for the community as a whole. I just never really find time to sit down and actually play it. As far as investing, a lot of my investing stuff I do actually in other games and like other fields, primarily Magic, old reserve list cards, beta, alpha stuff. So for Star Wars CCG, it's pretty much all personal collection. It's really just a nostalgia thing. It's the stuff that I grew up with, in my really formative years, from like late elementary school all the way through high school. And, you know, really just looking back on it, it's like, you know, I want to have like a complete collection of everything. So, you know, I really just was able to make some really smart financial moves in the collectible market throughout COVID that has afforded me opportunities to turn that around into, you know, collecting Star Wars CCG, since that's really what I found I'm most passionate about.
Very cool. So I want to dive into why you collect the unique stuff you do. But first, a little marketing. We're trying to grow the channel, Mark's channel for Darth Grader, more Star Wars content, Star Wars CCG content we can get out there right now, the better. We've been seeing more and more pop up. Mark's doing an excellent job. We're trying to grow the following. So we actually are going to be giving away 2 packs. We have some Cloud City packs coming, 1 Premier Limited and 1 Cloud City pack to anyone who likes, subscribes, and comments below. So we're going to do a little random number generator. We'll probably do it, sometime tomorrow, Mark, and post the results?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it's funny. You came up with the idea, and I think Fatty, kind of independently of you, also has been doing it on his channel, which is also great. So check that out if you're watching this as well. He's got
shout out to Fatty.
Yeah.
Shout out to Fatty. The more content, the better. So right. Back to Andy, you have a lot of unique and rare items that aren't traditional, not just like complete sets or, you know, even beyond tournament foils. You've gone into Reflections Gold, which we'll talk about later, Misprints. What are some of the main we'll call it oddities or Easter eggs you go after? What are the key ones you target and why?
Sure. So you know, I found that it was, you know, pretty easy to actually get all the sets put together. You know, I just basically bought them all at once off of a couple of people, and really wanted to look into getting some initially just like one thing from each of these like kind of odd sets. So light side, dark side backed Hoth cards, Reflections Gold, test prints, those type of things. And initially it was, I just wanted to have like one in my collection so I could say like, oh, I've got one representative of it. But, you know, when you start asking about stuff, things do come out of the woodwork sometimes. And, you know, I got a couple of great chances to pick up a few lots of things that really kind of bulked out that collection. So, you know, I think the things that I really try to specifically target at this time, Reflections Gold, and any type of misprints, miscuts, errors, oddities for Premier set specifically. I mean, the printing on that set was subpar, to say the least. You know, there's lots of errors in it. So I thought it would be pretty neat to try and put a whole set of Premier together that has something wrong with each card. So that's what I've been working on. I've got probably most of the mains, but there's just like random cards that they'll pop up and it'll be something that's like off-centered or slightly miscut, and you know, you can usually pick them up for like $1 or so and just throw them in the collection. I have to go back through and actually figure out how close I am. I was moving over the summer and the settlement date kept getting pushed back. So all my stuff was sitting in storage, and it's still mostly sitting in storage, unfortunately. So still have to take some time to inventory all of that, but, you know, really looking forward to trying to finish that out next year, because I think I'm pretty close. It's like, I think I've got maybe like 240 or 250 of the 324 cards already complete with,
wow,
like I said, most of the mains already done. So, you know, it's just like really dumb, random uncommons and stuff that I'm looking for. So, and then, you know, Reflections Gold, but they're just so rare that, like, you know, if they come up, awesome, I'm going after it. But, you know, it's not like something that is easily accessible to pick up.
For sure, and let's dive into that because I actually feel now fortunate enough. I have 3 Reflections Gold myself. We've talked about these. You reached out, interested in buying them, and you're to the preservation of history front. You want to complete the whole set.
Sure.
And if you get down and these are the last 3 cards you need, we'll talk because I'm beyond I'm behind that mission and that goal,
thanks.
and I'm not going to get in the way of history. But these are probably my 3 favorite things I own now too. I didn't know they existed until I think it was 2017 when Michael Arisman kind of mentioned it to me. Sure. So, do you have any handy you could show us and maybe you could give background on the history of it?
Let me see where my camera is. I got all mine here. I got 20 of them now.
So, for those watching that may not know what Reflections Gold is, and I don't think we can grade these, but maybe you can give a history.
Yeah, I'll give a quick rundown of Reflections Gold. So, basically, at the tail end of the game, we're talking December 2001. There was, and I know this because most of these all originated from Scott Church, who runs online web store and is one of the admins of the Facebook group. Really great guy. He's a wealth of information, and I learned a lot from him about Reflections Gold. He shared with me I guess he got some internal documents from Decipher about the production and release of Reflections Gold. And it's they're dated December 20th, 2001. I mean, they have the license for 10 more days. And they were trying to negotiate with Wizards of the Coast, who was going to put out the Star Wars TCG, if they got the files, all the files, there's 310 cards in Reflections Gold. They already had them. They knew what they wanted. They had the images all set. They were all templated. Everything was ready to go. But there's no printer that's going to print, package, distribute, and get these onto retail shelves in 10 days. And so they asked WotC if they could release them in early 2002. And WotC really dug their heels in and said no, because that's when, the first set of Star Wars TCG was supposed to be coming out in March of 2002. So the files basically just sat and did nothing until maybe about 2006 or so. There was a former Decipher employee who lives out in the Southwest that took them with him when he left Decipher, because he wasn't involved with any of the future Decipher projects like Lord of the Rings or Mega Man or Fight Club or whatever else they were putting out in the mid 2000s. And when he left, he actually took the only set of Reflections Gold that they had, which were, all of these test print cards with him. And they got passed over to a guy named Michael Barr, and there was some type of a accident, as Scott Church says, which involved a lot of adult beverages and some other things going on. And basically most of the cards that are from episode 1, minus the mains, you have the Anakin Skywalker. I know the Darth Maul is in existence somewhere, and I only had the only episode 1 card I have is the Naboo ceremonial chamber. Pretty much all the other episode 1 cards were destroyed.
Wow.
There's
sad.
77 of every movie. So there's 77 cards from episode 4, 77 from 5, 77 from 6. And I think there's 79 from episode 1 to tie out to 310. And most of those were actually destroyed. So you can't actually put a full set together. It's impossible. Few cards got shipped around to some tournaments in the Southwest, in Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California. And then the rest of them pretty much all got sent to Scott Church. There was about 10 or so that went to Michael Ersman, they went to Endor region up in Seattle, and he won the tournament where they were being given out. So he got about 10 of them. And then there was maybe about 10 or 15 more that were sent over to Europe for some tournaments. But the remaining like 140 or so went to Scott Church. Now, from his files,
that's
and
a big set, huh? If there's 140 remaining and some were destroyed, that's almost like a premier level set, just like had in the works.
Yeah. Well, so it actually gets smaller, the population of these, because Scott sold maybe about 25 to 30, he says, based on his files and records from that time, which he admits are a little bit incomplete because of changing hosts and web domains and stuff like that. But about 25 to 30 were sold through him. And then when he sold all of his Star Wars CCG inventory to the Players Committee in like 2015, all the remaining 115, 120 or so Reflections Gold cards were sent. Now, he has a video of the truck getting the pallet that everything was loaded on, put onto the truck, and the truck driving away, and he like celebrates like, yeah, it's all gone or something like that, right? When the truck arrived from Utah to New Jersey, that one pallet arrived as 2 pallets. So there's some different theories about what actually happened there. Most likely, the shipping company found that they couldn't put the size of that pallet and decided to split it into 2 so it could actually make the shipping on the like container. Probably what happened. But when they arrived in New Jersey, the binder with about 120 Reflections Gold cards was not there. So they're gone as well. So really, there's only about 60 to 70 real Reflections Gold cards out there in the world.
And how many do you have right now?
I've got 20 of them.
You have about a third of Reflections Gold.
Yeah, you've got 3.
If you do have one and you're willing at all to part with it, he will pay fair price from what we've seen.
Definitely. I mean, you have 3. I know Brian Twilliger has 2. A couple of other people I've talked to have a few. And we can account for maybe about 10 more out there. So about half the population of them that are known to exist can be accounted for, but the other half are who knows where, sitting in some shoebox from somebody who bought it in 2005 off of eBay or something, so, I'm trying to put the whole set together because I think it'd be really neat to try and get them back all together as best I can. If I never come across another Reflections Gold card, which I doubt will happen, like I'm sure I'll see some more at some point. I'm pretty happy with what I was able to accomplish getting at least these 20 back together. And, at the end of the day, I got 4 of the guys that really count here.
Let's see them.
So I got,
oh man.
Sorry, I don't know how this camera's working. It's like Southpaw or something here. So I got Vader, Yoda, Luke, and Obi. So
those are great. And where'd you pick those up?
So the Luke, this used to be Chris Kelly. He's he's the design advocate for the PC. He's a big Luke Skywalker fan. He actually sold this on eBay early summer 2020, and I was able to contact the person who bought it from him and bought it off that person. So and then the others, I actually got these 7, so a couple of interrupts and stuff, plus these 3 mains.
And why are they sideways for players and passionate fans who may be like, wait, I haven't seen a sideways interrupt or effect yet?
So
I think it's just interrupts, actually.
There's some effects that do it, but down here in this corner, there's some little kind of like orange looking symbols. They're credits. So the idea was there was this mechanic that they called the Liechtenstein mechanic, which was you were supposed to start the game with up to 4 credits, and then you can spend those 4 credits for specific cards in your deck. And there's about 100 different credit cards, all varying. They could be 1 credit, 2 credits, 3 credits, 4 credits. You could get 4 1 credit cards, 2 2 credit cards, a 3 credit card and a 1 credit card, however you want to split those 4 up. And you would actually start with those cards in your hand in addition to the 8 cards. So you could start with up to 12 cards in your hand with 4 of them that you already previously selected. There's some really dumb cards, like, you could always start with Clash of Sabers or something in your hand, which is just like a really good card, or prior to them making shields that cancel Revolution or Beggar, you could just start with, a Revolution in your hand, and you're just like, okay, good luck. They actually took that mechanic and turned it into the way that the Lord of the Rings TCG starts the game. So like if you're not familiar with that game, you always start with Frodo and the One Ring, but you could start with up to 4 cost of whatever they called it, Dark Shadow or Shadow mechanic for the in play. So you could start with like an Aragorn, he cost 4, or you could start with like a Legolas and an Arwen because they both cost 2. So they took the mechanic from Reflections Gold and basically turned it into Lord of the Rings TCG. So that's why those are sideways, like this tactical support. But yeah, I got all those off of gentleman John Palador, who had been picking up a lot of collections off former Decipher employees throughout, the 20 years of the PC history, and he was moving on to some other things and downsizing some of his collection, and kind of reached out to me when he saw that I was aggressively picking up every Reflections Gold card that was hitting the market, which were basically all of Michael Ersman's other cards, because I picked up all of his other cards that he had won from that Endor tournament back in the mid 2000s. So your Imperial Command, you are beaten in Anakin. Their brothers are over here at my house.
Nice. And if you're watching right now and you do have a Reflections Gold, you can find Andy on the Star Wars CCG graded group that JP Peltier started. Mark and I are big fans of. Andy's in there also. It's still a small community, just about 200 people. But we have really good conversations with really smart people like Mark and Andy, and it's become a great community. But if you do have Reflections Gold and you want to help Andy complete the historic set, you can find him in the Star Wars CCG graded group. So on that note, and it's funny timing because Mark had JP Peltier on last night. Go and check out that interview. He has a premier graded set. He's trying for at least a 9.0 on every card. You're doing a premier misprint set, which is I've never heard that before. That's hysterical. I can't wait to see some of this. Can you highlight your just misprints collection in general?
Mostly it's like a mixture of a lot of stuff. I have some. Again, a lot of my stuff's packed away. I apologize that I don't have something that I could readily whip out on there, but I'll be happy to post some pictures of some stuff that I do have up on the graded group or onto the main Facebook group if you guys are really interested. But I have some printing errors, like albino cards where they're not sun bleached, because with sun bleached cards you can still see faint traces of red and blue, but albino cards genuinely are lacking ink. Like the ink just ran out at the printer, so they're actually just black and white cards, which they're pretty neat. I've got about 3 of them. Collecting buddy of mine, Julian, over in Norway.
Yep, I know Julian.
He and I went in on those together because, sometimes when really rare stuff comes up, rather than try to bid against each other and just drive the price through the roof, sometimes we'll be like, hey, let's just split this. So he got a couple of those. So some genuine albino cards. I have, everybody, I think, or I can't say everybody because I know a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to make assumptions, but there's a Premier Blue, which is like where I guess it's the red ink really dried up. So the cards have this like blue saturation, like the green cards, like weapons and devices, almost look like the same color that defensive shields are, which is like this kind of like teal blue. That's where that gets the Premier Blue. I don't have any that are like that, but I have ones where there's like miscoloration on the card. So like part of like when the card was getting printed, there was something blocking part of the card from receiving ink. So like it won't, like I have a light side turbo laser battery from Death Star 2 where it's mostly green, but the bottom half is red because it didn't get the blue ink on it. So it looks like it's like a mixture of an interrupt and a weapon. Just some neat stuff like that. I mean, but for the most part, I mean, there's a lot of different variations and errors that you can get. A lot of it derives from inking and the way that they print them out they printed them out in Belgium.
Which you get into, right? Like I remember when we were talking about reflections, there's always some, and our good friend Rafi, I've talked to him about like the, can you verify they're authentic? That's a big thing. Right. So you've actually gone to the point where you've used technology to verify the reflections golds are accurate and some of these other cards. So maybe touch on that for a second.
Yeah, sure. So, specifically.
And how it applies to misprints also.
Sure. So like for, say, albino cards, your immediate gut instinct is to say, well, that's just a sun bleached card, because if you leave a card out in the sun long enough, all the red pigment will eventually, I guess, dissolve, and the card will look like it's a black and white card. But what I did is I have a genuine sun bleached card that I picked up off of somebody for like $5, where this person had basically left this card out in the sun for like 15 years unknowingly. It was like at his parents' house, like on a windowsill somewhere, and he retrieved it, and most of the red is gone. But so I took some 1200 DPI scans of the albino cards and the sun bleached cards, and then took those scans, put them into Photoshop, and then zoomed in 32,000%, so you can see the rosettes of the
CSI.
And when you get that close, an albino card has no other ink coloring anywhere on the card, whereas sun bleached cards, you'll still be able to see faint traces of yellow and blue. So really having to magnify, 32,000%, like no, to the human eye, they're going to look identical, but you can really go in deep with the printing patterns and how the ink is layered, because when they print, it'll print in color layer. So it prints like black first, and then like almost as if you've ever like silk screened something. It's like black first, and then like cyan, then yellow, then red, or something, whatever it is. It prints like that. And so when you actually look at like say an albino card or a card that's missing a certain color pigment, you can see the other layers of ink that have actually printed onto it, which is interesting. And to tie it back to Reflections Gold, if I take this out, it is actually a printout, and everybody always says like, oh, well, why can't you just print out a Reflections Gold card? Cameron, I'm sure you can see on yours, like the paper itself.
I have a good one I can hold up while you do it.
Yeah, like the paper itself is kind of like this, almost like you go to a CVS and get a receipt. It's like a receipt paper that is like an early laser print paper, because these were made again in 2001, so they're 20-year-old paper. The printing on it is like it's got this quality that you couldn't necessarily replicate from a like modern day printer. It's almost like a industrial grade laser printer, like at a printing factory like Cardamundi, but printed on like, with the like caveat, I like to joke that it's like an inkjet that's running out of ink. You just it would be very difficult to replicate the print pattern, and then they weren't printed straight. So I don't know if you can really see here. I'm trying to get a good view of this. The card itself, it looks warped. So
yeah,
right
it's interesting.
here, it kind of like bends. I don't know what caused that.
I can almost feel it on my Anakin, that bending. Can you like feel it on some of them, kind of? Is it physical?
Yeah, like you see, like this one has like almost like a dip here. It's like somebody went to a printer and like tried to pull the paper out as it was printing, and it like
they're in a hurry.
So like you can find all the scans of Reflections Gold online. They're in different Google Drives, and there's some websites that host pictures of them and such. But even just right click save as and save it, if you tried to print it, it would be very difficult to print a Reflections Gold card, especially if you've never actually handled one. Like,
and some of them have play testing marks on them because they were actually being play tested.
Like yours, I think you and I, Cameron, talked about your Anakin a little bit, because yours has a pretty neat story behind it as well. The Anakin originally had like power 1 or something like that, and the original play testing mark on it was that they, from like 2001 when they were making it, they stretched out it's power 3, right? Originally printed on there. They circled it and stretched it out and wrote a 1, but then somewhere along the line, and so if you go and find the original scans of these cards that are in, different Google Drives or websites, you'll find that Cameron's Anakin Skywalker with a blue ballpoint pen with a circle around the 3, and it says 1 underneath it. But somebody's gone in afterwards and actually changed that to the number 2. So I guess somebody thought that Anakin should at least have 2 power, than 1 power. But whatever.
It just adds to the character and the charm and the lore of it all, which makes Reflections Gold one of the cooler, more unique things. So you've got the Misprints, you've got the Reflections Gold. You also have, I asked you, I feel like I almost insulted you. I asked if it was even real that you got this item, because you're the only person I know who has one. I'm sure there's other people out there who will come. These are super expensive. I think they can go for as much as $20,000. People out there that don't know. And that's a Japanese Hoth box. Japanese Premier is also very expensive. Japanese A New Hope is more printed for whatever reason, maybe and that one I think you can kind of readily availably find if you really want to. But a Hoth box, I've been collecting these. I think I got Reflection Gold in 2017. Like, I've been aggressively collecting things for almost 5 years now. I've never come across one, and you have some ties or experience with Japanese ability. You have friends in Japan. Let's hear the story of how you acquired an actual Japanese Hothbox and how rare they are.
So I lived in Japan for several years. My wife's Japanese. You know, I met her there. I studied the language. I lived over there for couple of different times, again, for a couple of years. I have friends that live there. All my Magic cards that I own are in Japanese. Like I like the way the Japanese font looks, the way that the characters look, everything about, you know, the Japanese cards. So probably my favorite thing in Star Wars CCG is, you know, the Japanese sets. So
there you go.
There you go. There's a nice Commander Luke. It's beautiful. You should send that off to get graded.
Yeah, you should send that one off too and get another Gem 10.
Just corner the market on graded Japanese Commander Lukes.
Yep.
So I decided after I had finished collecting pretty much all of the cards, I got one of every pack sealed. Really, Brian Fred, who is, you know, mainstay of the Star Wars CCG community as well, convinced me that I should go after a sealed box collection. And I said, okay, I guess I'll do it. So the hardest one to get is a box of Japanese Hoth. And it was like maybe March of 2021, earlier this year. A Japanese box of Hoth popped up on the Mercari website, but the Mercari website for Japan. And Brian Fred actually asked me to grab it for him. And he and I have some deals about, you know, buying and selling stuff from Japanese websites. So he asked me to pick it up for him. And I think the box was listed for basically $2,000 on that site. It was on there for like 6 minutes before somebody bought it. So it didn't really have a chance.
Darn.
So I basically at that point kind of gave up on trying to buy a box of Japanese Hoth, and almost gave up on just buying a sealed collection at all, because if I wasn't going to be able to complete it, I was like, what's the point, you know? So roughly about like May, one popped up on Yahoo Auctions Japan. And I just went at it, and I don't know who I was bidding against. There are a couple of Japanese collectors that I do know of. I've talked to a couple of them that, you know, regularly buy things that are Star Wars CCG related, but they really only buy stuff off of Yahoo Auctions. So I think I was bidding against one of them. But yeah, I mean, I put in a final bid, 12.5 million yen, which is roughly about $12,500. Didn't end up going that high. Ended up around 900,000 yen, which is like $9,000. Plus,
which makes it the single most valuable sealed box in Star Wars CCG.
I think it's probably the single most expensive thing related to Star Wars CCG that has ever been sold.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My wallet didn't thank me, but you know, yeah, and then plus I paid my friend a little bit of money to receive it and do the bank transfer and stuff. And all in all, yeah, just done a hair under $10,000 for it. Sits in a, you know, archival encased glass box right now, but it's packed away with all my other stuff. So once I get all my stuff unpacked, we'll have to do this again. I'll take you guys on a tour of my Star Wars room once it's set up.
We need some pictures in the
right.
Facebook group.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Show that thing off.
Yeah, I picked that up, and the same person who was selling it actually had 2 more and put them up basically back to back, and those went for about 8,000 a piece. I bid on them, but I was satisfied with just getting one, and those ones were also a lot more beat up and worn. I think one of them, part of the seal was torn and stuff, but yeah, nice payday for that guy, whoever was hoarding those
nice
away.
Treasure trove hidden away.
Yeah, I mean, I know a couple of people who have some sealed boxes of Japanese Hoth, but man, there's got to be like less than 10 left in the world probably at this point. Maybe there's somebody in Japan who has 3 of them stored away in some closet somewhere. Sure, I guess.
Well, I think it was you who mentioned that, as you said, you kind of spent a lot of time in Japan before, and I think it's more like in the US, there's a lot of stores when they go out of business or whatever, there's just a lot of inventory that kind of gets lost or just sits around or whatnot. But, in Japan, the space is a little bit more limited, so it's not really the case. Like, it's much more unlikely that there's probably not that many places where there's just like boxes of Japanese Hoth sitting around waiting to be, like, someone just has a pallet of it sitting around waiting to be discovered, it seams.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, in the 7 years that I lived there, I'd go to game stores because I was playing Magic all the time, but I only ever remember seeing Star Wars once in a game store, and it was 6 packs of Dagobah that have the Takara English sticker or Japanese stickers on the back for the UPC codes. I bought them because they were like 50 yen a piece, which is like 50 cents. And I was like, oh, these are pretty neat, and basically put them in a box and forgot about them. But that was the only time I've ever come across Star Wars CCG in Japan anywhere other than Yahoo Auctions and Mercari, which, leads me to believe that there's really just none of it out there, or you have to really, really go deep on finding stuff. And I mean, there's a big chain of stores called Yellow Submarine in Japan. It's a big gaming store. They've got lots of locations. Their main one is in Shinjuku, which is kind of like the big epicenter of Tokyo, like the quote unquote downtown of Tokyo. They've got one. The owner of the whole Yellow Submarine franchise works there, and I talked to him about Star Wars CCG because that was the store that I found them, and I was asking him if he has any more, if they have any in their inventory in their entire store. I mean, they've got maybe 200 locations across Japan, and he's like, no, we don't have any of this. So, like, I'm pretty sure it just doesn't exist in Japan at this point.
You're making me happy. I have even one sealed
bag. To buy Star Wars CCG is not going to happen.
So what is the reason, just a quick question while we're still in the Japanese discussion, what is the reason why A New Hope seems a little bit more readily available? Is it just that, like, you think it was printed more, or people just didn't open it as much, or do you think, like...
So it was definitely printed more. Premiere was released in Japan in April of 1997, I think. 97 or 90.
I think that's what it says in the
97.
Collecting Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Like
and they had released all of the sets in sync with English sets, but like a few months off. So like if it was released in English here, they had to do a second print run for all of the Japanese market because one, they needed to get the Takara labels put on the back because the Japanese UPC codes don't mesh with the UPC codes that were printed on the back of packs. So like in the old days when you actually like had to scan a UPC, Japanese computer systems couldn't pick it up. So that's why they all have like this different UPC label on the back.
Including a couple Dagobah sets too.
Yeah. So it was Premier, A New Hope, Hoth, Dagobah, Cloud City, and Jabba's Palace that got Takara stickers put on them.
Okay.
And then they all had to get packaged into Japanese cases. I have an opened case of Japanese Premier, like the brown cardboard shipper box. But they're all a second print run. So they all came after the initial English print run. And like Japanese Premier had already been released about a year earlier. Japanese Premier, they put out, and before it was released, they need to get their orders in for the next set. So thinking that Premiere is going to be this like big, huge thing, they upped the count for A New Hope. A New Hope got a bigger print run. But by that point, the actual Japanese text is very off from what the real text says. Like it's a really poor translation. And most Japanese players preferred to play with English cards, especially since Premier and A New Hope had already been released and they already have those cards. Like, why am I playing it with a Japanese card that I can't even read because the translation's so bad?
Someone has been posting that recently in the Star Wars CCG group on Facebook. I forget who it was.
Yeah.
And the translate, if you can find it on Facebook, some of the translations are hysterical.
Yeah. So like none of the like players really wanted Premier or New Hope. So those had bigger print runs. So they scaled the print run back for Hoth. And then, so Hoth was underprinted. And then there was a printing error where like a quarter of, or like half the sheets would print with light side only rares. So dark side. So for like every light side rare you have, there's like one, like, or I guess for every 4 copies of a light side rare, there's 1 dark side rare. So like there's so much more light side than there is dark side.
So that Luke Japanese isn't as valuable as I thought it was.
I mean, it's still got some good value on it, but you know, it's no $1,000 General Veers.
So
Veers is the target card from Hoth then for Japan.
Yeah.
So why is that again? Because when I've seen like Brian Fred posting pack opening videos, it seems pretty evenly spread between light and dark side, at least when I've watched in that very small sample size. But maybe he just got like a box that happened to be cut like evenly.
So there's a couple things with Japanese Hoth. So if you look at an uncut rare sheet, you'll have, you know, at the top, maybe you'll have the dark side rares and then you'll have the light side rares. And they had rare 1s and rare 2s back then. So technically on an uncut sheet, even though it's a rare 1, they're each put in twice onto the sheet, and then rare 2s are put in 4 times on 1 full sheet and then cut. But there was a printing error where it should feed like light side, dark side, light side, dark side, light side, dark side, like that. It would go like light side, 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 dark side, light 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 side, dark side. So they're like super hard to find. And then towards the end of the print run, there weren't any dark side rares. So you could conceivably open a box of Japanese Hoth and get 36 light side rares.
The force wasn't balanced, but
no, not at all. So yeah, it's yeah, I mean, you can open packs and you'll get rares in them. You're more likely to get a light side rare than a dark side rare. You know, if you think about it like that, if a box has 36 packs, you'll probably get 24 light side rares and 9 dark side rares, and then split between rare 1s and rare 2s. You might get 1 to 3 rare 1s in a box, which based on the print runs is just like so much rarer than any ultra rare that you could possibly find. And then what makes it really more hard to collate a set of Japanese Hoth is like, sure, everybody's going to keep their General Veers and Admiral Ozzel and stuff, but who 20 years ago decided to keep Meteor Impact? Like nobody did. And so I know there's probably at least 6 to 8 people who are like all searching for like the same 6 or 7 like red cards that are like rare ones: weapon malfunction, high anxiety, meteor impact, responsibility to command, those things. Like they're probably more money than a General Veers or an Admiral Ozzel. It's just General Veers and Admiral Ozzel have the distinction of being, main characters, if you will. Nobody's really looking for Meteor Impact, but Meteor Impact going to auction's easy, going to go to $1,000.
It's pretty cool. Thanks for
Wow.
the info on that. That's awesome. Like I didn't even know. Like that's a little bit out of my element. Usually Japanese hot, but I know it's really hot on the group for sure.
I'm double checking here. It's Stalker and Tyrant are the other two, I would imagine, are the big chase cards there. Those would be
Blizzard
pretty...
Scout 1's really hard to find. Blizzard 1's really hard to find. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of...
Blizzard 1's a huge one to get.
Yeah. So
wow, that is fascinating. I see you
really
learned something
to put together.
You learned something new. This is why I'm so excited for this interview. And as you can see, Andy's just a legend in the community. This is I'm just sitting here listening, taking in knowledge right now. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Sure.
So Mark's channel again is mostly focused on grading. We love everything here. So let's bring it back, I guess, a little bit to the grading and then in the new investment mindset behind Star Wars CCG.
Sure.
So I guess 2-pronged question. You've talked a lot about Magic the Gathering. You've said you've made a lot of money off good investments there, which is awesome. How do you view Magic the Gathering graded card investing compared to Star Wars CCG grading card investing at this stage in Star Wars growth? And a follow-up to that, what are your favorite Star Wars CCG graded cards that you own? If you have them handy, we'd love to see them.
I didn't pull them out. Like you said, I apologize. Most of my stuff's still packaged away. I'll answer the second question first because it's probably the easier one. My probably favorite card, or close to my favorite card, is Executor. When I was like 11 years old, or whenever Dagobah was originally released, like there was no internet. Like I didn't know when the sets were going to be coming out. Like I just walked into the local comic store that sold cards and saw Dagobah, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And look inside their display case, and of course, I could have bought like a Mox Emerald for $80 at the time, but nope, there was Sideways. Never seen a Sideways card. Power 12, Armor 12, Deploy 15, like just the coolest looking card. I was like, I have to buy this $40 Executor. He's like all my money to buy it. And so I had a chance to buy a PSA 10 Executor over the summer, like late spring. It's probably more than that card really should have gone for, but I picked it up because it's a Pop 3. The same seller actually has all 3 of them, so I've been trying to negotiate with him to get the other 2 so I could just have the entire Pop 3 for PSA 10. There
might be more coming from Mark soon, so hang in there.
See what I can do there.
And it was a foil one from Reflections, because
nice.
I love the bling. So
gotta do it.
So that's probably my favorite graded card that I have. I also, off the group, picked up a really nice David Prowse signed Premier Black Border Vader. It's just BGS authenticated. It doesn't have a grade or any subgrades, but I personally prefer the look of BGS over PSA or SGC or really any of the others. Although I am very interested in the custom labels that HGA is doing. So, but I think that BGS just has a kind of more classy high-end look with the metal plate and the black on gold or black on silver with the laser embossed logo at the top. They just look nicer than like a label maker printed out PSA label. I just I know PSA is really king when it comes to the market and selling, but just something about BGS that does it for me. So a chance to buy a Vader because it's just such an iconic card, and then on card auto is something that really was I wanted because I got kind of big also into some of the top Star Wars stuff, top like Star Wars Masterworks and
nice.
The old vintage sets, the 77 to 83 stuff, and just like the newer stuff. A lot of times what they're doing, you'll see this in sports cards like Panini basketball and stuff like that, where it's not necessarily an on-card auto. They'll either sign like tape and then tape it on
sticker auto.
Yes, it just I'm just not as big a fan of.
I think the market shows that. I think that's a proven point at this point, that there's enough data now that a sticker auto versus an on-card auto, people are paying a sizable premium for the on-card.
Sure. Yeah. So I really thought it was pretty neat. I prefer gold signatures on cards. I think it just looks better. Like anytime I had like Magic cards autographed, I always got them done in gold. So this was a gold signed Vader with an authentic label. It looks really nice. It's going to display well on a case. I got a nice BGS acrylic holder so that I could put even more plastic around it to display. But yeah, I mean, those are probably my two go-to pieces of graded content that I have. I have a few other ones, not really a huge or extensive collection, mostly because I think that, the way that the grading companies like shutting down earlier this year with the lead times to turn things around, like unless you're willing to spend $300 or whatever it is, $250 to get it turned around, even then it's still like a month or so. There's not really that much in Star Wars CCG that would necessitate you getting that. It's not like you're gonna it's not like you're ripping like a LeBron refractor and you're gonna no doubt put $250 to get that turned around in a month. But so as far as like Magic goes compared to Star Wars CCG, I think Star Wars is in like this really weird place where most people who are doing Star Wars card collecting are probably focusing in on top sets, specifically vintage tops, 77 to 83. Or early Masterworks like 2015 or 16 when those first dropped, versus say Star Wars CCG. Star Wars CCG is like really a niche market within graded cards, and I think Magic, it's just such a bigger game. Like the amount of people playing it, the volume of product that gets opened, the volume of cards that are out there, even when you're looking at like really old sets, outside of maybe alpha, like, beta, Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends, like even though they're really small sets, they still have fairly large print runs when you're looking at it like apples to apples compared to like a Star Wars CCG. They're probably about the same as size and print run.
Do you think so? Magic had about the same size print run as Star Wars for kind of the contemporary?
Yeah, I would say like, there's probably more, maybe a little bit more Star Wars CCG printed.
Because I know in Magic, I heard like Ice Age was the one that was printed to like.
Yeah, Fallen Empires was the one that went like.
Fallen Empires, okay.
But like, if you were to, I've seen like some absolutely just beautiful, black label pristine 10 beta cards, and you're just like like my friend here in Philly, he had a pristine 10 demonic tutor and sold it for $120,000. Like, I don't think that any Star Wars CCG card will get a pristine 10. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, technically it's possible, though, as I talked
Sure.
about with JP yesterday, who also, by the way, is with you in the camp of BGS slabs. So he's on Team BGS with you, Andy. But anyhow, we went through and we looked at, theoretically, if you poked around, he did find 10 subgrades on every possible, like, centering, corners, edges.
That's cool.
And what's the other one? I can't, surface. But not together, of course. So theoretically it's possible. We probably just need to submit.
And didn't we have our
of
first
cards.
Star Wars? I'm sorry, our first Darth Vader PSA 10. No, obviously PSA and BGS, different grading.
PSA 10. Yeah, there is one somewhere. No one knows who has it. At least I don't know who has it yet. The hunt is on. So if you're the person who has it, feel free to reach out or join the graded group and show it off, because that'd be a big bragging rights thing right there. But
Sure.
I'm holding out hope that there's still growth coming, and we're going to see a lot more grading, and that there are some actual 10s coming. But the concern is real, to Andy's point.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's a little bit of a different, because Star Wars is a game that, I mean, the Players Committee have kept it running, of course, for, quite a while. But yeah, it's not an actively imprinted game like Pokemon or Magic. So it's a little bit different, a little bit different dynamic here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, on the plus side, I mean, Decipher's images are just beautiful. Like, a lot of the cards are just amazing to look at. Like, anything from Cloud City, basically, but if you look at, say, Topps Vintage 77 to 83, I mean, they don't really do anything. They're all muted. They're all faded. They're just, taken from film stills 40 years ago. And Masterworks are really just like single shots of a headshot of somebody.
There you go. Look what Cam's got.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a gem blue Obi-Wan.
That's a nice card. And I think there is, if there's any real area that could potentially grow, it's the fact that Decipher's visual appeal looks so good compared to really whatever else is out there on the Star Wars market for cards. So I'm encouraged by that. I mean, a foil.
We had the Captain Han Solo example just yesterday. Yeah. Mark was talking about where that card is, I think, known to be in high print, but it's just beautiful art. People, to the HTA example you mentioned, people just want to hang it on their wall. And we saw in the last year a Captain Han Solo go from $20 to was it $130?
Yeah, 130. So, I think a couple of them.
Full size, but I feel like that is to your point that you're making right now.
Right. Your random interrupt that gets printed, like, no, I think it's all going to be in main characters. And I think you'll find that as the grading community gets larger, and Star Wars CCG gets older, that keeping cards in really high grade, mint, gem mint, getting 9s, 9.5s, 10s, etc., is going to become a lot harder. So you're like 7s and 8s, you'll just find those all day. But you'll start seeing a lot more premium put on 9s and 10s for cards, especially stuff that has really good visual appeal, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, or something like that, or just like iconic cards like Premier Vader, Premier Luke. Those will probably be, and really any type of Premier cards, especially if they get good centering grades, are going to go for more money, just because centering on Premier is just like atrocious, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, I'm encouraged by the growth of the game. I think it'll be slower than Magic or Pokemon, but that's just by virtue of it not being really in print anymore, or as I guess in demand right now. But I do think that the grading for Star Wars CCG will grow, especially as the cards become older and older and harder to find in higher grades.
Right. I think another thing too, and I know we're coming up a little bit over the hour, but Disney's done a great job of kind of turning things around. I know after the prequels were coming out, people were kind of like, okay, this doesn't really feel like the original trilogy. It's a little bit different. Then when the sequels came out, then people were really like, well, I don't know where this is really, Star Wars is really going as a franchise. But with some of the releases like Mandalorian, Bad Batch, Book of Boba Fett coming up, I think it's kind of really done a lot to keep at least the IP of Star Wars going along. So I think that's kind of part of what, when I put up the Boba Fett for auction, it didn't really sell as high as I would have anticipated it would have, but I got like thousands of views on it just because I think people are looking for, I don't know, something. And, lots of people collected this game back in the day. So I think it does have, potential for people to get in. It just has to kind of maybe, like you said, maybe it'll just be a little bit slower because it's an out of print game. So people just kind of need to get back in and get comfortable, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And to that point, that I love that Decipher, and you probably have more insight to this, Andy, than I know even, but has the lore, and they work directly with Lucasfilm in some capacity. From what I understand, they took photos of some of the equipment. It was not necessarily, as you know, it's not like a shot from the movie. It's the actual axe, vibro axe is like set on a table and a picture taken just for the sake of the cards. Actors were brought in like Mara Jade, for example. And I'm going to forget the creature's name, the Tatooine sandworm that was just in Mandalorian. No, not the Sarlacc. I know the Sarlacc.
Oh gosh,
it was in the Mandalorian episode.
Crate Dragon, that's the one.
Crate Dragon.
Crate Dragon, yeah.
And there's I think an ex-Decipher employee made a post, and I thought it was one of the coolest posts in our community's history. That
was awesome.
He was like, "Holy crap! I made the lore for Crate Dragons on the Crate Dragon Star Wars CCG card." And now this is the first time we've ever seen a Crate Dragon on Mandalorian. And I thought that there is a direct tie-in with this game that can't be said for a lot of, name another card game that worked directly with the movie company. Even if it was around, 1999 to 2000, I still think that part's cool personally.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of history that Decipher was able to really come up with because it hadn't been spelled out in the mid-90s, and they were just like, yeah, sure, this random guy at the cantina is named so-and-so, and like now he's got like an action figure and a Wikipedia page, and he's in like
Wikipedia.
And that's all Decipher doing. So I definitely agree that there's a lot of history baked of like Star Wars canon or EU, however you want to look at it, because a lot of it got moved to Legends, but baked into Star Wars CCG, which is really interesting, for collecting purposes.
All right. Well, this has been an amazing interview. We're gonna sign off with one question, but just a final reminder as we try to grow the Darth Grader channel. We're giving away 2 packs. I only have one on me. The other is a Cloud City. This is a limited premiere. Follow Mark's channel, Darth Grader. Thumbs up. We're going to go through the comments, do a random number generator. Mark will just do it on his next show to start out. We'll pick from the comments, assign numbers, and give away those 2 packs. We'll get in touch with you through the Facebook group after. So if you're watching this and you want an easy, free chance to win a pack, just hit the like button, subscribe, and make a comment. So before we sign off here, what is of all I would say, and I would like to say Mark and I we're in the 99th percentile of Star Wars CCG knowledge, probably. We love it, but you're on another level. I think Andy's currently got the throne as a Star Wars CCG collector.
Now there's one person above me, I think. For sure. Jim Colson.
Okay, yeah, everyone knows Jim.
He's legendary.
Well,
I go to him all the time. He and I have like a constant chat running about just like random stuff.
okay, so we'll have to get Jim on the show next, Mark. Let's make a
All
note
right.
there.
Sounds good.
So of all and you know, of all the things you own, grading, Reflections Gold, Misprints, all the Star Wars CG items, what is your single favorite Carter item? Go.
I brought two things. I'll be really quick about it because I know we're coming up on time. So this is one. It's very small. It's a Premier Introductory 2-player set flyer. This is 3x5. It doesn't really look like much, but this was put out in the fall of 1995 in preparation for Christmas of 95 because that's when Premiere was launched in December. The thing is, the introductory 2-player game was produced by Parker Brothers. The only way you can get this is if you purchase a Parker Brothers game like Monopoly, Risk, Clue. This was an insert in those games for the Christmas market 1995, and they weren't ever again released. So while this looks kind of like innocuous, it's a small flyer for a product that basically nobody cares about. These things are just like, I've never seen one other than this. And I got this off of Tom Polinsky in the group. And he didn't really even know what it was other than that he had bought it off of eBay. And as soon as he had it, I just badgered the hell out of him to get this because they just don't, like, unless you're going to open up a box of Monopoly from November 1995, and like, how would you even know that that's from 95, right?
Before the game even existed. It could be one of the first items ever.
And like, what are you going to just like walk into a random store and be like, hey, do you have any copies of Clue from September to November of 1995 on your shelf so I can open it and get a random Star Wars promotional flyer out of it? Nobody. How would you even find that? I don't know. So the other really neat thing is, if you see this border is smaller than this border, so I got a miscut one, so it can go with my Premier miscut collection.
You're gonna have to get that graded now to preserve it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one. The other one is actually a Star Wars Insider magazine. This is from Germany. In 1998, they had partnered with a company called Queen's Games to produce a German language for release in late 1998. This specific magazine is Q2, so it was launched. So this one came out in March of 1998. And inside here, if I can quickly find this. Sorry, I had it open to the page and now I've lost it. There's an article in here explaining how to play Star Wars CCG. It's all in German. And many of you will probably remember these type of ads that were all over Scry and press. If it's in here, it's in your head. This promotion ran from Cloud City through, I know, at least Endor, maybe Death Star 2. I can't remember off the top of my head. But Premiere, Hoth, and A New Hope never got that treatment except in German. They released that ad in the German magazine for specifically Premiere, since it was supposed to be launched in Premiere. So it's if it's in here, it's in your head, all in German for Premiere, which was never released in English language. So just a neat thing. And it was supposed to be a 3-part article series about how to play the game. They released parts 1 and 2. And then when it got to, it says like, so that's issue 9. It says see more in issue 10. And then in issue 10, it says see more in issue 11. You get to issue 11 and there's no mention of the game at all. And that's because Queen's Games, who was supposed to be producing, decided to pull out and not produce Premiere. So it's just done. So there's only 2 magazines that have that Premiere advertisement. So,
And there's a good Germany
pretty
following for the
neat.
game, even to this date.
Yeah. So those are probably 2 of my kind of favorite oddball things that I own. And I think it's just a neat part of the history of the game that you wouldn't necessarily get from the cards themselves, which is something that I'm really kind of more interested in than just like binders of sets and call it a day.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and showing off the collection. I think it's one of the coolest, if not the coolest collection in Star Wars CCG. I will continue to hold on to the Reflections Gold cards on my end. If you get them all, we can talk. But
Sure.
Yeah, you guys are making me feel empty for not having any, but I don't want to get in Andy's way and, try and get some now.
Do you think they would grade these cards? I'm guessing no.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah. Well. Maybe HGA.
Maybe. Yeah. None of the big 3 will probably touch them. They'll be
right.
Like, what is this?
It would have to grow quite a lot that they would have someone dedicated to researching it, and we're probably, a little ways away from that. Or
probably pretty far away from that.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday that'll help JP out getting his collection finished. We need to hurry so he can finish his master set.
Exactly.
I put your if JP's watching in chat, I put your mailing in the post office box today, so it should be there soon, JP.
Oh, you liked your find. You said amazing, super rare. I think that was to your 2-player game flyer. So, yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Andy. This has been excellent. Yeah,
definitely. Thanks. Sorry we went a little bit long. Sometimes.
No, it's excellent.
Great
use of time. Didn't even waste a moment here. So, but again, we'll have to have you on again so that you can show off some of your collections once you get it unboxed and all that later. After the holidays or whenever you're free for that. Maybe I'll have to have you give us a lesson on Japanese Star Wars as well and how to read this stuff. Actually, my mom's side of the family is Japanese, but I'm pretty sure your Japanese is far better than mine. So maybe you can give me some lessons to brush up on that as well. So
lesson 1: don't read the cards because they don't make any sense.
All right, there you go. So some pointers already. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the lovely discussion. And yeah, let's definitely do this again sometime.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on. It was really fun, pleasure, and good luck with the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for that pack of Premiere Limited.
That's right. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Sandy. And yeah, thank you to the viewers as well. And yeah, definitely like the comments, as Andy said, if you want a chance at the packs that Cameron showed off, the Premiere Limited or the Cloud City. And may the force be with you all. Have a happy holiday season and take care.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.